Recording with Dr. Richard Fleming. Your book is in the description. It's the very first link. Is COVID-19 a bioweapon, a scientific and forensic investigation? And you are a PhD, MD, JD. And I remember in October 2013, when I was interviewing at Miami Medical School, they were like, most people go for the MD. And then they're like, and then there are some real nuts that go for the MD, JD. And then he was like, and then there are some inhuman people that go for all three. And I suppose I have one on with me right now. But Dr. Fleming, please introduce yourself, sir.
How are you doing, Tommy? It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Of course. I'm doing very good. Um Also, real quick, if I can keep fanboying. Yesterday I asked you, I was like, hey, are you cool with us going live? And you kind of hit me with like almost like a Zen answer. You said everything I do is live. And it's just a matter of when people see it. And I had never really thought about that. And that kind of stuck with me. Every once in a while I get thrown a little off guard. But let's get to it. It seems that the Overton window are brave and stunning government officials who know what's best for us and would never do anything against our best interests have decided it is now okay to discuss the idea that COVID-19 did indeed come from a lab. Can you maybe elaborate on that more so than I can just in an apartment?
So, as far as coming from a lab, or that the government officials are talking about it
Oh,
now?
no. Forget the government officials. The
All
actual
right.
facts on the ground. Yeah, no. They're
Yeah.
yeah.
You know, so when January of 2020 came into existence, and my plans the year before was to take what I was doing quantitatively with nuclear.
Your audio cut out. Oh, sorry for everybody watching. Not sure what happened. Uh, I will monologue. It seems his audio cut out. That happens all the time, but seeing as we're doing live shows now, kind of
Let's
have
try.
to. There we go.
Let's
Perfect. You're back.
get better.
Yes, sir.
Let me go to so that's this. What I really wanted to do was to use my earbuds, but maybe I would just do the. I guess I'm just going to do the standard. Can you hear me fine now?
Oh yeah, no, it sounds great.
Okay, all right. So we'll give this a shot.
Great recovery, by the way. Most people freak out when the audio cuts. I don't know. And I'm like, dude, it's okay. It's just a podcast.
Yeah,
The smooth
yeah.
recovery.
No, I'm here. So in in 2019, I thought we were going to launch Fleming Method for the things that I'd been working on it for, which was to figure out heart disease and figure out cancer and find things earlier, which really did two things. First off, it allowed us to really tell you what was going on in your body from head to toe. It could find things earlier, but because it's not a yes no test, it's a measurement test, it allowed us the opportunity, which we were doing with heart disease and cancer, mostly breast cancer, but cancer, then to do an imaging study, Fleming method, find out you had a problem, give you whatever your treatment was that you wanted, and then re-image and see if that actually worked for you,
Okay.
which, you know, then actually tailor makes a treatment for you based upon your response versus, maybe it works for 95 people, but it doesn't work for 5 people. And what if you're one of the 5?
Yeah.
So it saved time, money, and lives. Not that big pharma or the government had any interest in that, um, but when January 2020 rolled around, it was clear to me that we had a new problem. I was there as a medical student when HIV hit. So this being a new virus, I just simply sat down and looked at not only the imaging method, Fleming method, but also the theory that I'd introduced at American Heart in 1994 that talked about a lot of the diseases we have: heart disease, cancer, high blood pressure, strokes, obesity, diabetes. These are really inflammatory thrombotic diseases or inflammation and blood clotting. They are responses that your body basically has to something going on in the body that shouldn't be going on, and it's trying to bring it under control. And in the best of all worlds, when that works perfectly, you get better. But in the worst of all worlds, when it gets overwhelmed, you have the opposite effect. You have these diseases. And it turns out that that inflammatory thrombotic response theory, even though I first presented it in 94, and everybody and their uncle has done lip service on inflammation and heart disease. My response as somebody who teaches is, oh, great. You got the title to the book, but you didn't read the book, did you? I mean, because you're obviously not practicing like you have a clue what I said.
Yeah.
And I know what I said, so I don't feel the need to keep reiterating it all the time. It's like, go read it. And then come to class and ask questions, but don't waste everybody's time. But that being said, viruses, when I introduced this in 94, I said, look, it's not just going to be cholesterol or fats or homocysteine or lipoprotein little a, which, by the way, the American Heart Association is just recognized as now a risk factor for heart disease 29 years after I presented the theory at American Heart, right? So, good job. You're coming up to speed, only 29 years behind. Yeah. And, but I also said, look, there's these other things going on, these infections, viruses, bacteria, fungi, that can also make this worse. And so I presented at American Heart in 94, then 95, then put it in a textbook, in cardiology textbook in 99. And then from 2001 to 2003, I did the bacterial studies. And then in 2004, I was on 2020 talking about it. And that's kind of the last time mainstream media's wanted anything to do with me, but which is okay. I'm good with that. The problem is that when we started looking at these new viruses, and I would argue that the data, both in the book and what's on my website, Fleming Method, will point out to you that if you actually do PCR testing the way it should be done, right? And then you look at the samples of viruses that we have, the viruses that actually exist that match what's called SARS-CoV-2, severe acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus 2. And part of the problem is that they gave it a name, so everybody went, okay, we've got a name, but nobody asked a question, is that a valid name? Just because we say it, does that mean it's only one virus? And it turns out that if you do the PCR testing, and you can go to, again, FlemingMethod.com, go to the middle, drop down to gain a function, and with a little bit of practice, you can pretend to be a Google virologist. You will find out that what matches the PCR test primers that match SARS-CoV-2 also match 3 other viruses. One that's called CoV-RS-SHC014, which had a prior name in 2003. In 2003, it's what Ralph Barrick isolated and called SARS-CoV-Urbani. Same virus, by the way, same virus. You look at the nucleotide bases, they're the same bases. Okay. It's the same thing. Different name to change, protect the innocent, I suppose, if we can find any innocence. And along with 014, then there was SARS-CoV-MA15 and SARS-CoV-RS-3367. So if you do the work, and I've got it there on the website, so if you want to be a Google virologist, knock yourself out. You can find out that, these 3 viruses are gain-of-function viruses that the publications by Daszak and Barrick and Shizheng Li and a variety of other people were funded by the United States government primarily. I mean, more than half of it was funded by the Department of Defense. The information, we've got it in the book, is that, the Department of Defense, Health and Human Services, the National Science Foundation, U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID, Department of Homeland Security, what they're in this for is beyond me, Department of Commerce, Agriculture, and Interior, all helped and contributed more than $61 million, which, in the age where we're throwing trillions out the door, may not seem like much, but in the era, that was a big chunk of money. Sure. Somebody wants to offer you 61 million, take it. It's not exactly a pocket change, right? Sure. So when 2020 hit, and as I tell people, I was living in Los Angeles at the time, I think a week into 2020, I came down with the Wuhan HU1 strain, and it was not a good experience. I did not enjoy it. It was 2.5 to 3 weeks of not really fun. I hadn't felt that sick in over a decade.
Yeah.
I did celebrate the end of it by going with my son, who's a paramedic, to one of the carnival, one of the fairs that had roller coaster rides. I mean, the really good ones, because he and I both accelerated just that. That's a thrill, you know, diving in the ocean with sharks and going on those types of roller coaster rides. Well worth it.
That sounds horrifying. Horrifying.
Which part?
You said swimming with sharks?
Yeah, I love diving with sharks.
I've had on one guy. This is episode 1119. I've had one other guy on here that swam with. I've had on more Delta Force operators than I have people that have swam with
Yeah.
sharks. Yeah.
Hey, the sharks are more afraid of you than you are of them most of the time. We actually did back in October a dive with hammerheads. It's look, sharks are very easy to read, and you have a greater likelihood of dying from drowning than you do being bitten by a shark.
I'm sure. I'm sure that it's probably something you learn to respect, and then it's like a kid being afraid of riding a bike, and you're like, no, you're gonna get a hand. But kind of like the idea of earlier, the medication that works for 95% of people. I'm gonna be. I would be that guy. Would you hear what happened to Tommy? Yeah, no, Great White ripped him in half. Like I'll watch. I'll interview you guys, and I'll watch from the distance with my long sleeves so my white Irish skin doesn't get burned. I'll wave. And I'll be the grandma.
Yeah. Well, I watch a lot of people get in the water that are just regular open water divers, and my youngest son and I are both advanced open water divers and nitrox certified. And I watch people in boats, when they take them out on the little, what I consider rubber raft boats.
Yeah.
And I just frequently look at them and think, they're going to die.
Yeah.
They fall in the water.
Oh yeah. No, I cover all my bases. I just don't go in the ocean. I'm just checking all the boxes.
See, the beauty of that is over 70% of the Earth's surface is water.
I know.
Most people can't go into it. It's great.
I know.
Great. I'm going to take Fauci on a scuba course.
That might be the most veiled threat I've ever had on the show.
The sad thing, I like the sharks better than that, though. So
you don't want to feed them.
Yeah, I don't want them poisoned.
Yeah.
So that was a nice sidetrack, but thank you for the entertainment value.
No, sure, man.
So
celebrating getting over it. Yeah.
Yeah, January of 2020, I was trying to figure out, what do we do about this? Because I'd been around this before with HIV as a medical student. That was my era that we got to, we started medical college, no HIV, midway through. This is humanity's gift to us in our training. And so it was not uncharted territory for me. And I just simply went and dug up the literature to see, what do we know that works? What do we know that doesn't work? What are we really dealing with? Putting together a national clinical trial, starting that by April, concluding that, writing that up. But at the same time, trying to figure out, well, to know how to treat it and how to diagnose it, you need a handle on what it is that you're working with, right? And that began the investigation of a lot of evidence that uncovered. I mean, I right now have more than 4,900 documents to give to attorney generals for the prosecution of these people. There's 440 on the website for people, and that's probably enough, because I do the website on my own, and I don't like doing websites, and it's not fun, and I'd rather be scuba diving, as you've already picked out. So over 4,900 documents that lays out how all of this is connected, why these viruses, what their structure is, what makes these three viruses that we collectively call SARS-CoV-2, different from others. And you've heard this. I think I've seen you with Kevin McCarran, Dr. McCarran, doing something. You've interviewed him, is that correct?
I have to be honest, I don't recall.
Japan.
The doctors
Yeah,
run together.
yeah. Kind of like diarrhea. Um, the So, Dr. Kevin McCarran is a neurobiologist in Japan. He's probably what I consider one of the world's experts on prion diseases of the brain. There's Charles Rixey, who's a former U.S. military weapons of mass destruction instructor, who now, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, told me I was a conspiracy theorist, but now says, no, wait a minute, he's got records to back
Come
that up.
back in from the cold.
Yeah. Yeah, this is my 55th year of research, and anybody suggesting that I'm a conspiracy theorist really hasn't been listening to me. I am the least conspiracy theorist person there is. I don't give opinions. I get data and I respond to data. So if I'm talking about it, I've got data. Again, you don't need me to get an opinion from. You've got friends and relatives and loved ones, and you know,
Well,
I'm
it's
not one of those people in your life,
well, they've also completely slandered the term, and a lot of it reasonably so. People that think that there are dinosaurs in the center of the Earth from Mars, like I get that, but in many parts, conspiracy theory is nearly identical to just critical thinking, empirical observations, and going, "What am I looking at?" The apple falls from the tree. Something's going on. The Earth. I think it's round, or I don't know if we're going around if the sun's not going around us, or if we're going around the sun. A lot of it is
Yeah,
misinformation that would have you burned at the stake because you're a heathen.
yeah.
So yeah, I
Well,
hate
when
that.
Semmelweis said that there's something being transferred from patient to patient, that's why infant mortality was so high in U.S. hospitals, and that if we washed our hands in between, we might reduce that. They stripped him of everything he had, and a month after he died, they started washing their hands in between patients, and infant mortality plummeted by 50%.
Yeah.
I don't plan to die before I get a little bit of recognition for us having worked on this. Uh, and plus, I want to go diving.
Yeah, that too. I mean,
The
another one is just sorry to interrupt. I mean, Joseph Lister. He got to see it before
Yeah,
he died, but I mean, it's so identical to ivermectin. They would tell him like, all right, you can come work in the hospital. They're like, just don't mention your chloroform conspiracy.
yeah.
What?
Yeah, so you've got Lister and you've got Galileo Galilei, who basically said, just because the Catholic Church tells you that we're the center of the universe, therefore the sun must go around the earth. I got news for you, but you can figure it out if you just kind of make a few observations. We're a heliocentric, a sun-centered solar system, not a geocentric, Earth-centered solar system. So. I'm not sure how it would have gone had he
No, no, no.
explained much of the universe, but
Yeah, no. It's the derogatory term of conspiracy theorists. They try to clump anyone in that questions. In 2003, if Twitter was around and you made a post that said, "I'm not sure if there are WMDs in Iraq," you'd be banned, or there'd be a
yeah,
label that says "fact checker say this is false, sponsored by Dick Cheney."
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's give you another one. I'm a convicted felon.
All right.
Okay. And I am.
All right.
I'm a convicted felon because when I was a cardiology fellow from 89 to 92, all the new nuclear tracers that were being used were all research drugs. And instead of injecting just one dose, Big Pharma said, no, you need two. You need two doses. So I wrote the papers. I wrote some of the first papers that were out there, and said, here's the two doses. And by the time I was developing Fleming method to quantify things and had my own private practice, I just go and Big Pharma came back and said, could I look at breast cancer for them? And I said, well, I could. I'm cardiologist, nuclear cardiologist, and began looking at it. I discovered that Big Pharma lied and that the drugs didn't stick and you only needed one dose. And so I started doing it with a single dose and found disease much earlier than Big Pharma said. But Big Pharma didn't like that because they sold 3 million extra curies of radiation, which is about a third of what shut down that Japanese reactor.
Oh.
And at the time, they were making 20 million extra dollars a year. So for them, they didn't like that. And so I got taken to federal court, and the public defender hid what he did. And the judge decided the jury didn't need to know the whole truth. And we ended up doing a plea deal where I never pled to a crime, but they were happy to at the last minute say either sign this or your son can't come live with you and we'll put you in prison. It's like, well, fine, I'll sign it.
Hey man,
I'm out of
that's a
here.
good badge to have. Hey, if the founding fathers were alive today, they'd be called domestic terrorists. Who cares?
They would be. They would be. And in fact, they were. They knew that at the time. They
Yeah.
knew that if they lost, they were all going to be
Sign their
hung,
death
right?
warrant. John Hancock,
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah. And you know why his signature is so large, right?
Yeah, he wanted them to see. He said, if they're gonna come for me,
He
come for me.
he didn't want the king to have to put his glasses on to read his
I didn't know
signature.
that is so hardcore. That
Yeah.
is so hardcore.
Like I want him to be
Exactly.
able to read it without putting his glasses on. So when they come at me with like that, it's like, yeah, I've been fighting big pharma and big government that's been lying to you for decades. And so if you want to call me a criminal, hey, knock it out of the park,
Go for it.
right?
Go for it.
On the other hand, with 55 years worth of research and over 400, somewhere between 400 and 500 publications, if you don't like it, you're welcome to go do your own research and prove me wrong.
Peer review.
It's a semi-free society. Uh, so the digging of that laid out a lot of material that I put in Is COVID-19 a Bioweapon? Because I wanted, first off, it was an insurance policy for me. If the book's out there, it's a little bit, I mean, why should they try to kill me at this
Yeah.
point, right?
Yeah.
Secondly, I wanted it for people to be able to read, because I firmly believe you don't need a degree to be able to read something and look at it and say, it looks to me like the US government paid these people to do research. They published papers saying they did the research and they were successful. They got two patents, and those patents, then they're not issued for an idea, they're issued because you proved it. One is on the furin cleavage site, and the other one has to do with Barrick getting money
that
from
sequence.
Anthony Fauci to change the spike protein in coronaviruses, which is just, I mean, I just find that dumbfounding that you'd be, are you listening, Anthony? Stupid enough to go before Dr. Rand Paul and say, we don't do that when there's a patent that's got your agency on it, buddy.
Yeah.
But okay, go for it again, because, you're not my kid. I don't care.
Yeah.
You're Fauci's somebody else's kid. So digging into it became important to have it on the record, number one. And it's one of the things that we have for the attorney generals. And so what we've done recently, a couple months ago, was to put together a new website called 10letters.org. So the number 10, letters.org, which is a website where the American public can go on and enter their name and their address. And there's a box that says, I don't want my name or address to be shown. But you need that because it generates a cover letter for the attorney general and the governor of your state to get a cover letter from you. And then you also download what's called the indictment letter, which is a 6-page document that lays out the crimes, the gain of function research, where they develop biological viral weapons that are illegal, both by treaty law, federal law, and state law. And lays out, the names of the people like Collins, Gates, Fauci, FDA head, Woodcock, all those people that knew about this and allowed it to move forward. And between those two items, the indictment letter and the cover letter, then you send that in to both your governor and your attorney general. In the last 2 days, we have gone from 4,200 letters to 4,800 plus.
Jeez.
Which tells you this is building momentum. And Texas has the most. I live in Dallas. Thank you, folks. Ken Paxton, get up off your rear end and do your job. Okay. That's our attorney general.
All right.
The state with the second most numbers of people who submitted is California, followed by Florida. So when people think this is a red state, blue state phenomenon, no. There are more than 1.1 million dead Americans from COVID. That's more deaths than the United States military has suffered since 1776.
Uh-huh.
VAERS data shows more than 1.5 million injured Americans. That's more injuries than the United States military has sustained since 1776.
I didn't know that.
There are 32,500 plus vaccine accepted deaths, which are more deaths than the United States has lost soldiers in every war we've been in, except our 5 bloodiest. The next thing next to it, as far as deaths, is the swine flu vaccine that got pulled when 26 occurred. There were 53 in total. I think diphtheria has had something like 6,000 deaths, but consider how many decades the diphtheria vaccine has been around. And there are more people who die every day from COVID than we lost at Pearl Harbor or Twin Towers. There are 6.7 million dead people on the planet from COVID, which are more deaths than Hitler managed to massacre in his concentration camps during World War II. These people violated treaty law. Article 6 of the United States Constitution states that a treaty, once active in the United States, is supreme law of the land. But I want to walk everybody through the important points of that. The president has to sign a treaty. Congress has to ratify the treaty. Both have to happen. And the Supreme Court, because you know I'm also a JD, so you're going to get a bit of this.
Go for it.
The Supreme Court has ruled that there's 3 things that must be considered with a treaty: declarations, reservations, and understandings. Declarations do not change a treaty. Reservations and understandings modify the treaty as Congress ratifies it. So, for example, the World Health Organization treaty doesn't have any power in the United States because when Congress ratified it, and even when Truman signed off on it, it had reservations and understandings that said, if anything passes here, it's up to the states to determine if they want to enact anything. Important point for people to know. But the Biological Weapons Convention Treaty doesn't have anything that limits it. So that's illegal. And it says we won't make them, we won't store them. If we know anybody who has them, we're going to destroy them. We'll share our technology. And yet on November 12th of 2019, 7 weeks before any of us had heard about the viruses, the Department of Defense gave more than $400,000 in money to the Ukraine for COVID-19.
Oh.
Your brain around that. 7 weeks before we knew about viruses, the DOD was sending money to the Ukraine for a disease caused by the viruses. Now, over a year ago, the fact checkers said, well, that's not true. That's what you're seeing on the website by the US government isn't true. The DOD didn't say COVID up front. They just went back and changed things later in April and June of 2020. Well, that sounds good. Wait a minute, let's go take a look at that website. Yeah, when you look at that website and you go through all the changes to the contracts, guess what isn't there? Any notation by the Department of Defense that they had to change the wording anywhere along that money line. It's not there. And you can see each and every little dot. You can pull it up on the website and see what was done, who got monies, what changes were made. Either the US military, the Department of Defense is so sloppy that twice, not once, but twice, they made changes and oops, forgot to make the change on the website, even though they made changes to things before and after that time. or they did it and they didn't. They did it the way that they originally had stated, which it was there on the 12th of November, 2019. I want to know why they want to report on COVID-19 7 weeks before the viruses are out. Could it be because the viruses are showing up in Milan, Italy, in August and September of 2019 from tissue data? Could it be due to the fact that Wuhan, which was a brand new lab in 2018, co-built by the French and the Chinese, a brand new state-of-the-art B level 4 biological safety lab, BSL, in 2018, in 2019 suddenly needed new equipment for incineration and air filtration units, and its computers are being hacked? That doesn't seem like a very state-of-the-art facility. While at the same time the war games are going on, people are noticing how quiet the streets are, and the Chinese are temperature testing everybody in the games and telling them to wash their hands. And Wuhan people are ending up in the hospitals of Wuhan. All, let's see, that's an amazing coincidence in the timeline. So, I mean, I'm just a conspiracy theorist convicted felon. So what do I know?
As my favorite comedian Tim Dillon says, if you're from New York and you're on a cruise in the Caribbean and you meet someone else from New York at the buffet, that's a coincidence. Things surrounding Wuhan, things surrounding JFK, these are not coincidences.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I couldn't have been happier when everybody learned about the CIA thing, because of the 5 doctors that were there when JFK's body was there. And I think if you've done any work on me, you know I'm a JFK kid.
I've had on so many authors about. Yesterday I interviewed Lee Harvey Oswald's ex-girlfriend.
All right.
Yeah,
And
she said he didn't do it, but I've had people on that said that he did do it. Sorry, go on. JFK kid, doctors.
no, that is so. And of the 5 doctors that were there when JFK's body was brought to Parkland, I've been trained by 3 of them.
Oh wow.
Which is coincidence, I guess. I don't know. I mean,
That's another coincidence.
yeah, but
I'm
including the guy who
I'm
was head of
making a
pathology.
sorry. I'm making a note. I'm not just saying I'm not playing on my phone. I'm making a note to add the 10letters.org and Fleming method to the description.
Got it. It's, these are amazing. People who think that you have to inject nanotechnology in people to let them know what's going on. I can't even get away from people because I have a cell phone. They know where I'm at.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
They know
Yeah. No, you don't need to be injected by that. You're carrying, they're gonna chip us. You're carrying your chip.
Yeah, you're carrying it around. There's no reason for them to do anything more to it. And what they tracked the students during spring break in 2020 and said, well, this is, these students are responsible for spreading it. Look how they spread it across the country. Wow. Aren't you the same people who said that, no, we're not tracking you?
Didn't
And you just nonchalantly brought that out, and nobody gives a second thought to it, right?
didn't Clapper say under oath, we don't surveil Americans? Didn't he? That guy that worked at the what
Yeah.
was it called? The NSA? Huh, I get that. Maybe just a
Yeah.
meme. Another funny
Yeah.
coincidence.
I'd love to see the files they have on me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, yeah, I go 40 chess. I just put all my interviews online. There's nothing to find, nothing to hack.
Yeah, there are actually people that want to know why I don't have a telephone that cannot be monitored. And I tell people it's just easier this way if I just tell them directly what I'm thinking.
Yeah, yeah. There's a I saw a funny
Time.
I saw a great meme, and it was like when you make an anti-government post on Facebook and you limit it to the only person that can see it is yourself, and the meme goes, "This is between me and the government."
Yeah.
This is for them. Yeah,
Yeah.
I always joke that there's a Zoom says there's 2 people in the room. I always joke it says there's 3, and it's somebody from Langley or Fort Meade. So just smile
Yeah.
and wave, boys. Smile and wave to the Beltway
But
bandits.
what, and I always wonder what people are doing and why. So in 2021, Fort Detrick actually had somebody reach out to me twice to see, as a physicist, if I wanted to work at Fort Detrick on viral diseases funded by NIAID. And I thought, either you people are not paying attention. You've got, you know me from the olden days in my work. as a physicist, and you want want that expertise. But at what point in time did you not do I mean, go do a Google search. You'll find all sorts of garbage on me from where they tried to basically bury me in the past, and probably should have done it, but left me alive. The reality is, anybody should have gone out there and said, maybe this isn't the physicist we want to recruit,
Well,
or they're trying to entrap me in some way, right? So,
I've had on Dr. Andrew Huff, who wrote the Truth About Wuhan, and he talks about how DARPA reached out to him after he had
right.
started to blow the whistle and said they kind of just threw all like TSSCI clearance checks aside, and they're like, "Come work for us." And he was like,
Yeah. So on 10letters.org, that we use the book and the affidavit that I have and the deposition they gave under oath. The document for this, for the attorney generals, is signed off by myself, by Dr. McCarran, the neurobiologist,
neurobiologist,
prion disease expert in Japan, by Charles Rixey, the former U.S.
WMD.
military instructor for WMDs, Johanna Deinert, who's a physician in Germany who's trying to deal with the same issues over there, and Andrew Huff.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah.
So, and we have these great conversations about, what are, have they just completely lost any ability to screen or do what they're doing? And at this point in time, it doesn't really matter anymore. We've long passed that line in the sand that several of us have, that, they know what's going on, and painfully so, and that's all right.
Yeah.
Because I'm not the one who actually committed crimes. They are.
Yeah.
And they are the ones that we're going to put in prison. If the people on 10letters.org are going to make this happen, Americans that go online, make that cover letter, download it, and download the indictment letter and send those in. These are the heroes of the country, whether they have their name included or not. These are the heroes because they are the ones that say, we're going to stand up and demand that our attorney generals do the job they took an oath to do. Eisenhower, when he left office, gave a warning speech about the medical, military, industrial complex. And my grandparents and my parents' generation dropped the ball. And this is where we are as a result. We're either going to drop the ball, and this will be the generation that everything falls, or we're going to carry the ball, do the job that we were warned about generations ago, bring these criminals into justice, correct the problems that exist, and hand over to our children, our grandchildren, our friends, our relatives, whoever is important to us, the America that was fought for, or we will watch it die. Because this is very much, this gain of function research is coupled with the Lamarckian genetics that is carried out of CRISPR technology with this gain of function research and all the work that the Nazis were doing during World War II. And if you put the 40 papers together roughly that tie CRISPR, this genetic vaccines with gain of function all together, you find out it's the same people, the same US agencies, the same people like Gates and Helmsley. All these people are connected. And if we allow them to continue to do that, we will have essentially turned over control of the planet and our children and our grandchildren and the lives that we live. And if we do that, then we have nobody to blame but ourselves. But we can't sit there and blame them or our politicians or our attorney generals if we will not hold these criminals accountable by simply sending in these documents. Now, I think Americans are going to do it because in the last 2 days, we've gone from 4,200 to 4,800 plus letters in 2 days. And it's called 10 letters because if you do it and then tell 10 of your friends to do the same thing and they do it, and they tell 10 of their friends, what you will have is an inundation upon the attorney generals in all 50 states to do their job. And I can speak directly to the fact that there are several attorney generals who want to take these people down and punish them for their crimes, but they need to know they've got the support of the people in their state. And the others that are cowards, first off, they're cowards. History's going to judge them. But if we push them, they will join the effort, because even cowards don't like to stand out on their own. They want to get reelected. They want to say, see, I'm really the good guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So even cowards can be done. And the states in sequence with the most AG letters so far are Texas, California, and Florida. California in the last day surged ahead of Florida.
Oh, wow.
So nobody can tell me there are not people in the state of California. I lived in LA for 7.5 years. And FYI, California, I like California.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
I like LA. I like San Diego. I don't like a lot of things that are the consequences of it, but I can say that probably a lot of places in the country. Yeah. Okay. There's certain things I like in just about every place I go, and certain things I don't like. What I don't like are dishonest liars who manipulate and believe that they can do whatever they want to do, even if it harms other human beings. You know, I was with a police department in my earlier years, and we used to have this sign at the front of our podium that says, your right to swing your fist stops where the other person's face begins.
Beautiful.
So you have a right to swing your fist until you violate that other person's rights. These people know that they're violating the Biological Weapons Convention Treaty. These people know they're violating 18 U.S. Code Section 175. And that code, that 175, which is federal law, also has very clearly stated that it doesn't matter. If you take a virus out of its natural environment and put it in a lab and change it, you violated the law. Not my code. I didn't write it. I wasn't there, but it's federal law.
Yeah.
Which means they wanted to make it crystal clear that this is a crime. And that type of criminal belongs in prison. You know, I'm going to get off on a tangent here, probably get yelled at by some people.
Who cares?
January 6th was chaotic and a fiasco. And where I do not think that Simone Gold should have gone inside that building, to have sentenced Simone Gold to a day in prison instead of just verbally beating the out of her was insane. They did not put someone in prison who was a threat to the United States of America. What they did is they puffed their chest and they said, because we want to do it, we can do it. I think it was dumb she went in there. I know her. I've got her number. I know how to contact her. She's got mine. That was stupid for her to do it. But to imprison that woman for a moment, that was not justice. That was just somebody saying, we've got power and we're going to manipulate it on you. Well, guess what? The people of this country have the power. Everybody in there getting a paycheck, they're getting it from the taxes we earn, or imaginary money at this point in time. But they're there because we put them in office, and we can just as easily take them out of office. And the reality is they work for us. This is a representative, it's a republic, right? It's not a democracy, it's a republic. I don't get why people argue this point. This is not ancient Greece, guys.
Yeah.
This is the republic. You know, the woman, when she asked one of the founding fathers, not Jefferson,
Ben Franklin. What do we have? A republic if you can keep it.
Yeah, we're giving you a republic, madam, if you can keep it.
Yeah.
Yeah, right? A republic. He was pretty crystal clear. I'm not sure why the founding fathers are so much smarter than what's going on Twitter. And it may be because they learned to keep their mouths shut instead of constantly talking. You know, one of the differences, well, I don't go looking for interviews.
Yeah.
When I'm talking, all I'm doing is telling you what I know.
Yeah.
I'm not learning anything.
Yeah.
You learn things when you are quiet.
You're silent.
and you either read or you listen to what somebody else gives you. That's when you learn something, or when you're doing research, whatever. But the point is that talking does not teach me anything new, right?
Yeah.
So it might be that the founding fathers, like my parents and my grandparents, knew to listen, observe, and think about things and make an intelligent, informed decision, as opposed to expecting somebody else to tell them what's right and wrong, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you can no longer determine for yourself what's right or wrong, you're dependent upon somebody else to tell you what's right and wrong, and that puts you in extremely fragile position.
Hope they're a good guy who tells you what's right and wrong. Hope it's a good guy.
Yeah, because bad guys. I mean, I buried my early research because I knew what they would do with it, and you have to make a decision upon all along the way who's going to be in charge of what.
Mm-hmm.
You may have a really exciting idea, but put in the hands of the wrong people. I mean, I'll probably get nasty grams for this either. This is not a Christian country. Okay, the founding fathers were very clear on that.
They
Had
fled
they said this
persecution.
is going to, hmm?
They
Yeah,
fled
exactly.
persecution.
The moment you make this country or any country a given religion, everybody who chooses to have a different religion gets persecuted. And if you've made it a certain religion, you can always get new people elected into office that will go, well, it's not a Christian country today. Today it's a Muslim country,
Yeah.
because the elected people have decided it's a Muslim country. No, this is a secular country where the founding fathers were intelligent enough to understand that you should be allowed to have your religious beliefs and not have to surrender them to somebody else just to get along and to not be punished. That's the beauty of the founding fathers. They were intelligent enough. The fact that many of them were Christian, that
Make,
says something even
makes it even
more
cooler.
compelling,
It
doesn't it?
makes it even
Right?
cooler. Yeah, no, it makes it
Yeah.
even cooler.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to, yeah, I'm not going to get further down that rabbit hole, but it's important for people to understand that these were intelligent people that wanted us to think intelligently, and they knew what would happen. It's a republic, madam, if you can keep it. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Dr. Fleming, real quick, I'm gonna go use the restroom and you're gonna hold it down and tell everybody where to find your books. And I do this every episode. It's just I've only recently started doing them live, so now it's weirder.
Yeah.
So you're gonna tell everybody where to find your books, your website, everything. I'll be right
Well,
back.
you,
And
you would you would solve that if you put a Foley catheter in before all this.
I've had more people say I should be sponsored by Depends than it's I'm 32 years old and I maybe should be sponsored by a diaper company. But
Well, I don't know. All I can say is it just depends.
it, that's strike one.
Okay.
I stay
Okay. Well,
hydrated. Tell everybody where to find your stuff. I'll be right back.
okay. All right. So yeah, very nice. So Skyhorse Publishing, I'm not a good promoter of my own thing. Skyhorse Publishing, you can go online to find Is COVID-19 a Bioweapon, a Scientific and Forensic Investigation, or you can go to other bookstores. I see it on other sites online, but Skyhorse Publishing is a company that recognized the importance of this, and wanted to get it out to people and make it available. And in addition to that, 10 letters, the number 10, letters.org is the website where you can go online, download the cover letter and the indictment letter and send it off to your attorney general and your governor. And then Fleming method, Fleming, just one M, and Fleming, no stuttering, Fleming method without a space in between, gives a lot of information about these viruses and the vaccines and everything else, along with some other information. And then Crimes Against Humanity Tour, all put together as one word, allows you to see a number of the presentations that several of us did last year, and we will be doing more of this year. But as we bring this out, as people become aware of this gain of function research that's coupled with the CRISPR technology and Lamarckian genetics and the genetic vaccines and the consequences of all of this wrapped together, we're going to have more people calling for accountability of these criminals. And with that, you're going to have an opportunity to stand up and participate in the process of not only stopping these crimes from happening, but restoring the integrity of the United States of America. Because right now we're holding on by a thread. The shiny city on the hill is literally being held on by a thread, and it's being held together by people that are brave enough to come out and talk about it. You know, like Tommy here having a program on. By the way, do you know what flag you have behind you there?
What flag?
Yeah, what flag you have over your shoulder?
Yes.
That's the war flag. That's the United States war flag. The peace flag, those stripes are vertical. Have you ever seen the peace flag flown?
Oh, I
You
I think
haven't.
is like the entire top blue, and then is that it?
It's yeah, it's yes,
Is it
yes.
is it is it sideways, or maybe I haven't.
No, it's the flag. The importance is that the vertical stripes represent the peace flag. The United States has only been at peace 18 of our years. With the exception of those 18 years, we have been at war every year. And when President Donald Trump in January of 2020 started signing orders, he placed the United States on war footing. His declarations of the powers that he used were wartime footing powers. He placed the United States on war footing, and we haven't come off that.
Hmm. Defense
He
Production
did
Act,
that.
right?
Yeah, that was all of those acts called for a placing of the United States on war footing. And by the way, instead of people looking at China and saying it's the Chinese doing this, first off, remember the Chinese are a group of people. They are not a government. Americans are a group of people, not the government. The Japanese in World War II were a group of people. The US government put Japanese Americans in internment camps. And all they wanted to do was to be Americans, most of them. So we need to focus on who the real enemies are. The enemies are the people that made these gain of function biological weapons, and they include Americans and people in China, but not the Chinese people. And it doesn't include the American people, but it is a requirement that the American people and the Chinese people and the people of every country demand accountability of what's gone on. Following World War II, it was not the German people who held Hitler and his people and his criminals accountable. Their country collapsed, and other countries came in and held them accountable. The last thing we want in the United States is the collapse of this country and other countries coming in to hold us accountable. If we don't want that to happen, we have to stand up and remind the world that we are the shiny city on the hill. I hear this from everybody. This is the beginning of the 39th month. This is March 1st. This is the beginning of the 39th month. And I have had people all around the world, scientists, physicians, just people in general, say, "Where are you, America?" 10letters.org is our opportunity to answer that with a resolute answer to the rest of the world. We are here. We are going to hold these criminals accountable, and then we're going to come for the criminals in your country that colluded with them, and we're going to help you hold them accountable as well, so that we can really get our world back to where it should be.
It's gonna keep going until there are repercussions, and that's just the reality of it.
At the end of October, when everybody started thinking this is wonderful, we're done, phase 2 began. They rolled out genetic vaccines for cancer, amyloidosis, cystic fibrosis, influenza, and respiratory syncytial virus. You have not heard anybody say, "Are we going to test those?" No.
October of last year? of 2022?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Everybody got so used to allowing people to be injected. They no longer raise the question of, is there any research to show that this is safe and effective? Everybody acquiesced. They rolled out a genetic vaccine for cancer. I am legend should pop to everybody's mind. Okay, got it?
Yeah.
Cancer isn't a disease, it's diseases.
Yeah.
And they rolled out a genetic vaccine for cancer. They rolled out a genetic vaccine for amyloidosis. This spike protein of these viruses and these genetic vaccines not only cause an inflammothrombotic response disease, but it causes prion diseases. In the brain, that's Alzheimer's, or mad cow disease. In the heart, it's amyloidosis of the heart, or amyloidosis of the pancreas causing diabetes. They rolled out a genetic vaccine for amyloidosis on the heels of viruses and vaccines that are causing amyloidosis. They rolled out a vaccine, genetic vaccine for cystic fibrosis, and they rolled out one for influenza in contrast to what they'd been doing, and for respiratory syncytial virus, which children tend to get. And there's a good 15 in the pipeline, and nobody's blinking an eye. If you think we got over this and we're on the way out, your nightmare is just beginning unless you stand up and hold these criminals accountable. Because failing to take and deal with the gain of function, that's the disease. Everything else is a symptom.
Okay.
When you go to your doctor and you say, I have this going on, do you want them treating your symptom or symptoms, or do you want them treating the disease causing the symptoms? Because if you just mask up the disease, the symptoms, if you just mask the symptoms, the disease will come back with a vengeance, and it will kill the body and soul and mind that it's in. And this disease, this gain of function and CRISPR technology disease at the core of our country is rotting away the body and soul and mind of this country and the rest of the countries. If we do not stop it, the consequence will be the death of the country and the death of the planet as we know it.
Is it just that we have now been trained, the Overton window has been shifted to say it's okay, we no longer need 15-year, 4-phase FDA clinical trials, we'll just rush it through because it's an emergency? Is it simply that, and these are corporate just raptors taking the advantage, or are these being rolled out in a manner to hurt people?
I think they're rolling it out in a manner to learn. What they've learned over the last 38 months is that, to do a research project, you either need a lot of time
And a lot of
or a
your
lot of
own money.
subjects, or a lot of subjects, right? Well, money's not an issue, right? We're all funding it.
Yeah, well, yeah,
And or they're making it out of thin air, right? Because it's all ones and zeros right now in computers. So, hey, knock it out of the park. The reality is you need a lot of time or a lot of volunteers. And what did we learn in the last 39 months? We have a lot of volunteers.
Oh yeah, for a donut.
We've learned that the repetitive vaccinations have numbed the innate immune system response. It has numbed the antibody responses. When you revaccinate somebody following SARS-CoV-2 vaccines with influenza, the effect is blunted, right? We have learned that the larger the lipid nanoparticles are that are injected into people, the more in the end they'll make the proteins, and the more genetic material will get into the cells. We've learned all that. We've learned that the more you give, the more you can shift the antibody response from IgG to IgG3 to IgG4, so that you're no longer fighting what's being injected into the body. You're kind of acquiescing it and accepting it. So they have learned how to be able to mass vaccinate people and increase the likelihood that they're going to get uptake. Now all they have to do is play with the genetic codes that they want to insert and see what the consequences are. And listen, if you're not one of their close friends and you happen to have a bad outcome, so sad, too bad,
Yeah,
right? Because in the end, what's the old expression? You have to break a few eggs to make an omelet or something like that. I mean, if people die and your attitude is, but you're going to make a better humanity, then you're justified in doing it, right? If nobody makes you accountable, you're justified in doing whatever you believe is right. And they're obviously watching who gets what and determining the outcomes, and they're learning from it, and their learning curve has been exponential.
that's genuinely what I believe is going on, and I've kind of said that as my own theory. I want to say as early as like spring 2021. Excuse me. Is that yeah, just thinking of like FDA trials and how much of your own money it costs and R&D, and you got volunteers and N equals however many. Like, what if you could get the government to pay for it? What if you could skip all the trials, not to mention get the media in your pocket to gaslight people and then go against civil liberties and say if you want to go to a movie theater, you got to take it. I early on I was like, I don't think this has anything to do with COVID. I think this has to do with the technology of mRNA vaccines. And there's a bunch of elite who are looking at it and going, how do we accelerate this research process to extend our lives or make our lives better? And they're going, just tell everyone, every race, man, woman, young, old, whatever your genetic background, whatever your exposure, whether you're in India or Norway or Mexico or whatever, let's get the entire spectrum. Let's do N equals 7 billion or 8 billion, and let's see what happens. And we'll get it in 39 months. That's what I think's going on. I think they're running it up to see. I think they want the mRNA thing perfected, and clearly they're doing it because computers can't do it alone. So they're just saying whatever. I mean, they treat us and view us as cattle anyway. They're psychopaths. I think that's what they're doing. They're fast tracking mRNA injection research so that they can fine tune it.
And it's all referred to as Lamarckian when you go through the papers. And that is exactly what Hitler was using in World War II. Justified everything that they were doing, and it's justifying everything they're doing now.
Yeah, and what's that quote? Like, that's the worst tyrant is the one that thinks they're doing it. They think they're just.
That what people So I'm also a SAG actor. So Screen Actors
Yeah.
Guild actor, and one of the things, well, maybe your viewers can know, one of the one of the things that younger actors have difficulty with is playing the evil part. And what you learn, first off, the key to acting is not to act; it's just to be you, right?
Hmm.
Um, and the second thing to learn, as far as a bad guy, is bad guys never think they're bad; they always think they're right. Hitler
Hmm.
didn't think he was a bad person.
No.
Hitler thought he was doing the best thing for Germans, right? Do you think Anthony Fauci thinks that he's a bad person?
No.
No, I would argue Anthony Fauci firmly believes that the rest of us just don't understand what a wonderful job he's doing. I mean, you can listen to him.
Yeah.
He's just constantly saying he's doing a great job. It's very important. Somebody asked me on an interview yesterday, what did I think about a quote that the press secretary said for the president of the United States, which was, "We need this gain of function research, and everybody basically needs to get on board." I said, well, I've got two responses. And the first one is, the president of the United States isn't qualified to make a scientific or medical comment. He's not a scientist or a physician. If he wants to make a comment that says, well, the experts have told him that
Yeah.
this is an important thing, that's a statement. That's a valid statement. But the president of the United States thinks this is very important. Everybody should get on board. Joe Biden doesn't have, I don't know what science classes he took, but he doesn't have a PhD. He doesn't have an MD. He doesn't have a master's degree. I don't even know if the guy has a bachelor's degree. Okay.
No idea.
And
Yeah.
Dr. Biden is not a doctor of medicine. So the first thing I always ask people is, what are you a doctor of? I'm sorry, an education degree. Okay. That's great. I'm not going to, but
Sure.
you're not coming into my lab.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that doesn't do it for you. Right.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. I apologize. We were running
Oh no, we
time
can.
wise.
No, we can
Happy to
keep.
get back
We
in.
can keep going. It's up to you. I always throw the hour as a kind of a loose
Yeah.
thing to aim for.
I have to leave in about probably 10 or 15 minutes just to let you know.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll let you
Perfect.
go in 10. Yeah, I will release you from my grips. I will release you from my interrogation in 10 minutes. No, but that's what yeah, they think they're doing the right thing. I genuinely
Yeah,
believe that. Those are the best video game villains.
yeah,
For all my video gamers, I mean, like Far Cry 5 or Far Cry 4. I mean, those are the guys that think they're doing the right thing. They're like, don't you see? And there's, it's like the evil, Saddam's evil. He's holding together, all of Iraq. We kill him. And then what happens? And it falls into a void. And it's like, yeah, those are some murky waters. Like,
yeah. We are going to have a lot of fun, from the attorney perspective. Not that I get to do this because
yeah,
I'll be one of the expert witnesses and not one of the prosecuting attorneys, obviously. But the fun begins with discovery. Asking questions that they have to answer
yeah,
because what is this? You can't handle the truth. I
yeah,
mean, this is the you can't handle the truth moment, right? You're
yeah,
going to get on the witness stand, and you know that they believe that they're doing the right thing. And even if their attorney says, don't say that, do you honestly think that Fauci or Collins or Gates, I mean, just think about the personality of these people, are not going to sit on a witness stand and try to convince a jury that they just don't understand the good they're trying to do?
yeah.
Yeah. We're gonna extend life. We're treating disease. We're finding viruses before they exist. Yeah, like 100,000 years before they exist. Yeah, you're putting things into viruses that we know shouldn't be there. I mean, there's a vaccine that's out there, and I won't say by who. If you've listened to enough of my videos, you know who. That is the express purpose of is to get your cells once you're injected with it to make glycoprotein 120, which is a part of HIV,
Oh, geez.
right? And this person is out there telling people that he's a good guy. I'm sure he's got a reason that he believes that giving you a vaccine to make part of HIV is a good guy. I just want to hear him say it. I want to hear him explain it. And I
Just
want
walk it
people
out.
to wrap their brain around that when this man says, well, it's a good thing to have a vaccine to make glycoprotein 120 in your cells, even though we know it's an infected part of HIV, even though we know it causes prion disease of the brain, even though we know it causes inflammation or blood clotting in people and will kill you. But I'm the good guy because I'm got this vaccine and you should take it. And he even admits in the patent that it is gene therapy.
What I think is, I guess, the optimistic thing to look towards is I always think of the book Operation Paperclip by Annie Jacobson. And I mean, it's nothing new, but it's kind of like one of the core themes of it that's not explicitly stated, but it's proven by the fact she lays out is they are a tight-knit crew and appear to be a monolith when things are going their way. It's the Nazi machine. They have jet engines. They're doing nuclear research. They can't be stopped. How is as Norm Macdonald said, a country the size of Maine, of the state of Maine, tried to take over the world and almost did it. Like, yeah, they were scary. And but if you look, starting in like 1942, 1943, not even towards the end, scientists just, I mean, of all the fields they did, chemical, biological, but let's just stick with rockets. I think it was Arthur Rudolph was one of the guys, lesser known than Werner von Braun, but several of them started taking documents, just specific things that they worked on in the V2, the fins, the hypergolic fluids or whatever. And they would take these and put them in crates and go bury them on like a farm or something. 3 years before the end of the war, on the off chance that things went south and they needed bargaining chips. And some of them would bury stuff together. Okay, me and Dr. Fleming, we're gonna go bury something together. And then they would also take something, lying to each other. They would also take a smaller thing and go bury. These guys were doing this not in April 45, but like January 42. And they kept up the facade of we're going to win, Thousand-Year Reich, Wunderweapons. And then once they started to get closed in on, they all squealed on each other. They all went and got their documents. And when they were all held in there was like a mansion that they were all held in. I think they were brought to Britain or France, and and they put like a barbed wire fence around and called it Ashcan. And that's where the US held them. I think that's the correct name. And they would interrogate all these guys, the top guys. And they'd all be in the rooms, talking to each other like good Nazis and about how it was unjust that the war was over. But then when you get them one on one, to a T, they would all say like, "I'm a good guy. These other guys, these are all rat bastard Nazis. You should hang them." The next guy would come in and go, I was just listening to orders. Rest of these guys, demons." And they would all go through that cycle. And that's actually how we started to get more information out of them, is the interrogators would just go with gossip. They'd be like, "Oh, I heard this." And they would go at each other. But my point is we now know that 80 years later. At the time, like where we are now, it seems like an impenetrable monolith. I would put whatever few dollars I have, not a whole lot, so I don't know how valuable it is. I would put my life savings on in years or decades, hopefully in months. We will look back and say, man, in 2020, Fauci was putting his own hard drives and, in Faraday cage vaults. Bill Gates was making his own videos, his own dead man switches. Walensky was doing this or whatever. I think that is, and we're not going to see it right now because right now it's still in their best interest to remain a whole. Once they start getting picked off, like you said earlier, you can get cowards to work for you because they're cowards.
Yeah.
These people are cowards. They might think they're doing the right thing, but once they start to be, focused with, okay, well, you're about to go spend the rest of your life in Guantanamo, they're going to fold and they're going to pull out a hard drive that magically has information that implicates everyone else. And the other guy will have it too.
Redfield was the first one who actually did this.
Yeah. Yeah. Former CDC director.
Yeah. And that's when, he walks out and he says, well, I can't tell you certain things because, it's kind of confidential. But, I am a virologist and I never bought this naturally occurring virus thing. Really? So why didn't you say that while you were in that position? That would have been incredibly helpful. It would have helped Congress and a lot of other people right up front. And Fauci immediately came out and went after him. So you can see it is easy for these cracks to occur, and they will occur. And all we need are for the people to go after him. 10letters.org. They can probably put that on my gravestone. 10letters.org. If you thought he was kidding, he wasn't, right?
Yeah. Right.
Will bring down these criminals, this regime. This is the operation. And originally when we started this work, I called it Operation Bludern, which means blood eagle in my ancestry, since I'm Viking pureblood. And recently, about a week ago, when Dr. Christian Northrup joined us in all of this, advanced it to Operation Normandy Beach, because we're starting to coalesce enough people right now to bring the troops together to actually have the beach landing, to establish the beachhead to invade in all the areas, and they will crumble.
Yeah.
And if you're on board now, you have an opportunity to say you got on board early on. If you're coming on board late, don't expect, there's an old saying, don't expect to stand up next to me in the end. If you weren't there during the hard times, don't expect to stand next to me in the good times. If you're one of these people that doesn't become actively involved, once this happens, you will not be able to look at your children and grandchildren and say you did the right thing. They'll have to actually know that you didn't stand up to do the right thing, and it was somebody else's mother and father or grandparent that stood up to protect you in the end, and it wasn't your own parents or grandparents. I wouldn't want to be that person. I'd much rather be in this position right now fighting against all of this title part, seeing people join in a collective effort to put these criminals at least behind bars,
Yeah.
if not
It,
something better.
yeah. And it will. I mean, it will. They will crack. They will. Don't forget, up until like the day before Hitler died, they were still researching mini U-boats. They were putting like Hitler Youth out in front of the Fuhrer bunker. He did, what was it? The Nero decree was all German citizens like burn your houses down, pull out wires, blow up bridges. It's, we will win. And then he shot himself like 6 hours later. It it appears to be a great, I guess, kind of imagery is, think about a fire. You're just sitting up at whatever near a lake, 4th of July. You're just watching the fire at night, and little sparks are going. And for an hour, it's not moving. Maybe the coals are glowing, and then all of a sudden, and one of them shifts, and then they all fall. How did that happen so quickly? Well, it's been happening for the last hour. You didn't see it, and then one of them bends, and the whole thing comes down, and the sparks go flying. It's not that everything happened in the last second. It's just that's when it was visualized. But it's been burning the whole time. They are never going to, unlike a fire, they are conscious beings, and they're not going to broadcast, we're weakening up until the last moment, up until the Nero decree. They're still going to say, we are a monolith. We are, we are the holders of human evolution. At the last second, they'll collapse, and we'll all say, how did that happen? Well, it's been happening for years. It's just going to come to a head very quickly. I don't know when.
Yeah.
Sooner than later, hopefully.
Yeah. Unlike the fire, they're hoping that you will ignore it and go away so that it can rest. But if you don't ignore it and go away, if you actively keep adding the letters to the fire,
Yeah.
it burns.
Yeah.
It breaks down.
Yeah. And it's going to collapse, and it will. They're only people. We'll wrap it up with this. And obviously we'll do another episode. I pledged up a fraternity in a school in southern Georgia, deep South Georgia, in fall 2009. Hazing you, hitting you with paddles, no sleep, all the good stuff that I think is probably illegal now. But I remember what they would say is, whenever you felt like breaking, right? Because the pledge class would be like 50 people, and 3 months later it'd be down to 10. They'd always tell you to find one of the brothers who was hazing you, and find the one you respected the least. Just, he's bad with women, bad taste in music, physically unimposing. Look at him and remember that he got through initiation in Hell Week.
Right.
Are you going to fail what that guy could do? And my logic is this. Look at Anthony Fauci. That's the bully. Anthony Fauci. Bill Gates. That's who I'm going to surrender to. Hey man, if they're 10 feet tall and have like axes for hands, that's okay. That's a little scarier. Anthony Fauci, like, that guy needs a wedgie and like to take his lunch money. I can't surrender. Like, as a man, I can't look at him and go, yeah, no, he won. No, I would rather die than surrender to Anthony Fauci. Like, good Lord in heaven. That's kind of my final 2 cents on that. But Dr. Fleming, book is in the description. I will update the description right now to put 10letters.org as well as Fleming method. And yeah, man, I'd love to have you on again sometime.
We will definitely plan to do it. Yes.
And thank you for putting up with my interview style. I think it's unique. Other people say it's unhinged and, inappropriate and all these buzzwords, but I like it. I think it's fun. But thank you, sir. Dr. Richard Fleming, you're a real one. You're a genius. Thank you so much for your time. Keep fighting the good fight. Till next time, everybody. Thank you so much.